Christmas! And welcome to another 12 Games of Christmas list. I'm Mike DiLisio, and today I'm going to be covering 12 solo games that you could look for somebody on your list that maybe likes to play games on their own. One of the things that has been a big trend in modern board gaming recently has been solo games. And some of that is due to practicality, where people are having to spend more time indoors, but also I like to think that part of it is due to the fact that publishers and designers are really paying more attention to the solo variants that can be applied to many of these games. As a matter of fact, most of these games on my list are not exclusively solo games. They're games that are multiplayer and have a solo variant, and they've gotten so much better at these that I want to highlight some for you. Also, just really quickly, these aren't necessarily my 12 favorite solo games. Some of them are on my favorite games list, but they're all very good, and I tried to cover as wide of a swath as I could for different types of gamers, different types of experiences. So, with that said, let's get the list moving. My first choice is a cooperative game called Spirit Island. And this is a cooperative game where you can play as a series of asymmetric spirit powers. It's very interesting. It takes the kind of classic colonialism theme and throws it on its head, where in this game, you are playing a series of spirits who are working in concert with the indigenous people of an island to scare off the colonial powers who would come in and try to impede. And it's really an interesting game where you have a series of cards that you play that have fast powers and slow powers that are going to determine when and how they get triggered. It's a game that you can really scale up the difficulty. You can play it pure solo with just one spirit, but you can also play it with multiple spirits, which makes it more challenging to control, but more satisfying in the interactions between those spirits. So Spirit Island is a great cooperative game. The next game on my list is really essentially a pure solo game, although you can play a cooperative, but this is really, make no mistake, a solo game, and this is Nemo's War. This is a game where it is just dripping with narrative. It really is a game that is almost more about the experience than it is the mechanics, because at heart, this is a dice rolling and dice mitigation game. You're going to be rolling so many dice in Nemo's War, your hand is going to be tired by the end of it. But there's such a great story that's woven throughout, this sense of an adventure that you're going on, and it really pulls you in to the story of Captain Nemo and all of the dangers that they face. There's a lot of different ways that you can play the game. You can play it so that you're focusing more on exploration, more on combat. It's nice in that sense. It has different types of experience, but Nemo's War is a game that has had a lot of love in the solo gaming community for good reason. Next on the list is what's known as a roll and write game, where you are having a paper kind of player board in front of you and you're writing things on it. But this is technically not a roll and write because you're not rolling dice. It's a flip and write. This is Cartographers. Cartographers is a game that is based in the world of Role Player, another game out there, also actually another good solo game. But in Cartographers, you are a map maker, as you might expect, based on the title, and you are trying to create a map based on cards that you're flipping over that are going to have kind of Tetris-style tetromino pieces, and you're trying to gain particular types of scoring based on cards that flip up. What's nice about it is that you get a sense for what's going to be happening later in the game, so you can do some early planning. A lot of these types of flip and write or roll and write games, you don't have any advanced things to work towards. You're just kind of hoping for the best. But in Cartographers, you kind of know what's coming up ahead, and you can plan accordingly. A really solid game. That is Cartographers. The next game on my list is perfect for somebody that likes old school beat 'em up arcade games. This is Street Masters. And Street Masters is a game where you've got a small board that you're playing on, and it's very tactical. You're going to be playing a hero and you're facing off against an enemy, and everything you do is based on this modular deck system, this modular deck of cards. And it's going to be based around interactions, combos that you're building by which cards you play that trigger off of other cards. And you're going to be having all kinds of oncoming enemies that are getting in your way, keeping you from focusing on what you need to do to win the game, which is defeat the big kind of enemy boss that you might have in a video game. And Street Masters does a really good job of giving you this feeling of combo-tastic abilities that you feel like you have no chance, but you're able to pull off a great turn and just barely defeat the big boss enemy. So much replayability, so many variable decks. You can put together different stages, different bosses, different heroes to create just almost unlimited replayability. That's Street Masters. The next game on my list is an area control game, a big box area control game with miniatures. For a solo game, it's hard to pull off, but Mezzo does a fantastic job. I do want to point out, for Mezzo to be played solo, you do have to incorporate the Souls of Jabalba expansion. But in Mezzo, you are playing as a Central Mesoamerican god that is trying to become the highest on the pantheon. You're trying to raise in the pantheon of Mesoamerican gods. And you're doing this primarily through area control, area majority. You play against an AI opponent, and it's a really, really clever AI system where you have to really account for what they're doing. You can't just put your head down and focus on what you're doing. You have to worry about what that AI is doing. A fantastic area majority game for a solo player. That is Mezzo. The next game on my list has maybe one of the most intriguing and interesting and fascinating themes. This is Petrichor. And in Petrichor, you are playing as a cloud. Yes, a cloud. And filled with these lovely glass droplets of rain. And in Petrichor, you are moving across a board of tiles, and you are trying to play cards that are going to allow you to drop raindrops on those clouds, or off of the clouds onto the board below, to be able to trigger scoring. And there's also some area control and area majority there. And there's also playing against an AI, similar to Mezzo, which I just mentioned. This is a card-based system where you're flipping over a card and doing what it tells you to do on behalf of the AI. A really satisfying experience, a beautiful aesthetic, and a game that has really kind of gone under the radar. Petrichor is a really good solo game. Next on my list is Raiders of Scythia. And Raiders of Scythia is an interesting game because it is based off of an earlier game called Raiders of the North Sea. Raiders of the North Sea was a Viking-themed game, worker placement with a unique mechanic where you place one worker, take its action, pull another worker and do its action. Raiders of Scythia does the same thing in a different theme, and it also incorporates some elements of expansions that were added to Raiders of the North Sea. So why I'm choosing this game for this list is because it's a single box game, a base box that takes everything I loved about Raiders of the North Sea and some nice little elements from the expansion and puts it into one. If you have somebody that likes worker placement, this is a great, great game for them. A really solid solo experience with a good AI opponent. This is Raiders of Scythia. Next on my list is a big, epic, ridiculous experience game. And this is Nemesis. So let me make this clear. This is not a small game. If you want to really show somebody that you're getting them a special gift, Nemesis would be one because it's a big box. It's not cheap, but it comes with this incredible series of miniatures. This is basically Aliens, the movie, as a board game. Nemesis is a game where you are trying to discover, you wake up in cryosleep in the ship, and you've forgotten where everything is, and you're trying to complete a particular objective, and you're trying to do this with the constant threat of these xenomorph aliens that could come up, and every time you move, you're making noise that could potentially draw these aliens to you. A really, really immersive theme, a great job of pulling you in. Nemesis is a game that has a lot of variability. So you can have a game where you die very quickly and another game where you pull off this epic win. Really, really fun game. That's Nemesis. The next game on my list is a pure solitaire game. I said there wouldn't be many, but this is one. This is Coffee Roaster, and I feel like this is one of the most charming games that has come out in the last few years, solo or otherwise. In Coffee Roaster, you are doing just that. You are trying to create the best blend of coffee, the best roast of coffee. And you do this through what's called a bag building system, where you're pulling tokens out of a bag and you're placing them onto a player board, and you're trying to do this to ultimately have a final part of your round, which is a push your luck, where you've built up tokens in your bag to try to get a particular target number that you're reaching. And so you have to pull out one token at a time and put it on your little coffee cup. And what you're doing is trying to hit a particular range. So maybe you're trying to get 15 points of coffee roasting, and you're pulling out numbers out of the bag, but you're also pulling out burnt beans and things along those lines. So just a really cute game, a clever idea, a beautiful aesthetic. That's Coffee Roaster. Next up on my list is Parks. What a gorgeous game. Anybody who likes visiting national parks or loves nature will immediately be drawn to the aesthetic of Parks. This is a game where you are playing as a hiker and you are simply trying to visit the most parks as you can. And in this game, you're playing against the forest rangers. So it seems odd that you're playing against the rangers, but just go with it. You're basically you're getting blocked by these forest rangers, but you're trying to visit these different spaces along a path that are going to allow you to collect resources that are going to then allow you to go and visit different parks, taking pictures along the way. The art in this game is absolutely stunning. It has just this beautiful aesthetic. The components are great as well. It's a game that is going to appeal to people just walking past, but if you're playing alone, you can enjoy it by yourself. That is Parks. The next game on my list is another big, epic adventure. This is the City of Kings. The City of Kings is a game that you can play in a lot of different games as a solo player. If you want a one-off scenario experience, you can do that, where you are trying to do a particular mission. Maybe it's a pick up and deliver mission. Maybe it's a combat mission. Maybe it's a resource management and gathering mission. There's all different types to play it. Or you can also play it as a campaign where you've got a series of scenarios that are linked together. But in all of them, you are using an action selection system. And it's a beautiful looking game. It's a very intriguing game in the sense that you kind of know what you have coming in front of you as far as these monsters, but you're pulling different abilities out of a bag that make them different enough that you can't have the perfect plan. City of Kings is a really, really good solo game. The last game on my solo list is for anybody who loves dinosaurs, fan of Jurassic Park. This is Dinosaur Island. This has this big, bold, bright neon aesthetic. It's a game that I feel like does a really good job of not taking itself too seriously. It's a game where you are trying to collect the most visitors to come to your dinosaur park, and you're trying to do so in such a way that your dinosaurs don't break out and eat your visitors. That's not good. You don't want that. The solo game of Dinosaur Island is one that is interesting in that you're not playing against a rival opponent, but what you're trying to do is solve a series of objectives. And I think that that's a really good way to handle solo games when done well. And I think Dinosaur Island does it well, where you're having to do a particular number of things in a certain number of rounds to be successful. Dinosaur Island looks great. It has a nice aesthetic. The components are really good. Big, lovely, translucent, chunky dice. That's always good. This is a game that I feel like is good multiplayer, but it's also very good solo. That is Dinosaur Island. All right, well, there you have it. 12 games, 12 solo games for my list, and I hope that this is something that will appeal to a wide range of gamers. And so if you've got gamers that like worker placement, if you've got gamers that like resource management on your list, if you've got gamers that like cooperative games on your list, if you've got gamers that like area control, there's something here for all of them. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that you enjoy all of our 12 games series. There's a lot more to come. I'm Mike DiLisio. Take care, everybody.